game like this is 50 years in the future, man, we got to design everything, you know. And so we build a website just based on the production design. Everything from a cup to a, what do I say there, a car, right? But I mean forks and garbage cans, all this stuff has to be designed. The crazy thing is, if your production design is done right, it's kind of invisible. People don't even realize that you've built the world, you created the world. But the main thing is myself and the art director and the concept team, we are creating a world as everything else is going on, but we're building examples and rules so that the artists and designers can actually make all these things later on. Here's shapes and here's colors and here's what compounds would be, and we were researching all these different things. And the website will have that. So, you know, if we're building you know, at some point we're creating like 6, 7, 8 levels at a time, and maps are going on and multiplayer. Can't approve everything. So we want to put it in the hands of the creative people so that they have these rules and they can build tables or whatever it takes. So the production design is an extremely important part of a game like this. So first thing, we start out with broad strokes, and I'll just say, here's a little bit of what the world I see, you know, and they'll do a couple of drawings like this, and we'll look at it and go, well, maybe that building there is a little too far. These are very early production design. Here's another one. And they'll say, well, maybe it's too busy, but, you know, we like the monorails that are going on. That'll probably happen. And this one, you know, I liked some of the stuff that's happening, you know, on the signage and on the ground. So then we eventually get into detailing. We'll pull stuff out. Oh, I really like the cars. Let's get the cars out of there and some of these shapes and the colors. And you're building. There we go. Okay, we have pages and pages and pages of this sort of stuff. It's like, okay, these are the shapes, these are the colors, these are what the beds may look like. Now, we don't use any stuff like this. We'll go and we'll create it, of course, but these are just guidelines that we'll use. Then, you know, we really get into the details. Every gun, every weapon is built out. Here's the technology, here's the different compounds, here's the colors and stuff like that. So a lot of detail goes into every single thing. You know, the character, we'll get more into the XO in a bit. Any kind of drones, things like that, we'll just kind of concept out. We'll make sure that, you know, they're based on reality in some cases. Now, this one here is interesting because after we start to get the world, we understand what we're doing with things like, you know, LCD screens and smart screens, smart glass and stuff. We have location scouts. We can't go everywhere in the world. We do try to get to the places where the game is, but if we can't, sometimes we can't get permission. We have location scouts that we can send out, and they'll go in and photograph all this stuff. And so these are very detailed photos, and then we'll go back in and paint over them to show, okay, this is inside a factory and some of the details that we have in the game. Again, this is one that says, okay, I mean, even the asphalt, right? Studied the asphalt, found out, you know, over the past 20 years, they're putting different compounds in. Some places they're putting little pieces of glass. Other places where it's cold, they're putting something else in, and that helps melt the ice. So, you know, we thought about what would the asphalt look like in 50 years, or what kind of detail would be in there. The other thing is we started thinking that instead of painting it on the road, there would probably be this either smart glass or you know, just some way of getting it on there. It wouldn't be painted anymore. Most of these signs we said would be animated so they can change them at any point, but they would still want them to look like today or in some way be relative, because, you know, we looked at the stop signs and all that, and that doesn't really change that much, right? They modernize it a little bit, but so that's the kind of things that we did. Then we get into interiors. And then this is the culmination. This is just one example of, like, okay, this is what smart glass would look like. There's what the ground would look like. Here's some of the cars. So this is one that is, we're feeling better about, okay, this is what the world is going to start to look like. Then, of course, we bomb it. But not all the time. Pre-production, completely different than, you know, the production design that we shouldn't have. But these guys are kind of in the Wild West. They don't have to follow the Geneva Conventions. Most of the time they aren't incorporated in a country in which they follow our particular set of rules, and they're growing. We talked to our guys in the Pentagon. They said, oh, yes, 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 yes. In the next 25 years, we're very worried. One of the top 5 worries is about the private military corporation growing. So there we were. We had a very good new enemy. So it really set the story in motion. We know who the enemy is, it's different, and how we have to write a story. We had the influence of really real-world stories. We saw it growing in Iraq and Afghanistan. So they're merging in Africa, where one company is like starting to buy up specialization. They're buying a company that was very good in guarding mines, another one very good at guarding oil wells, another one that's good in fighting in the fields, in the jungles, and, you know, actually cool shit for a video game. And we knew that it was going to have a CEO. And so there we have we can make a real memorable character. So a lot of stories are starting to come out just with some of these original ideas. And so the characters, you know, besides, so we now have the main character, and we knew that guy, it's his story, Private Mitchell actually, and we have a CEO, and we're starting to develop the other characters in the game. And the idea with the characters was, if you guys are, a lot of the TV nowadays, you have the Game of Thrones, and you have you know, Walking Dead, and House of Cards, and things like that. They're really good stories in which you want to watch because of the characters. So we started, you know, really getting into, like, we got to create these characters. We create very big backstories now. You know, are they divorced? Have they been married? How many kids? All this sort of thing, so that when we're telling the story, we want to have sort of ad libs. We want to have them talk about stuff. They can reach into the backstory and really pull out some information. And you know, working with Kevin Spacey on that, I just like name dropped big time. But you probably all know that anyway. But so working with him, he wants to know everything about the character, and so, you know, after even our first meeting, he's like, I call myself a detective. I want to know everything about your character. So make sure you write enough. I went back that weekend, we go back more, you know, what kind of cigarettes he smokes, what kind of shoes he wears, and all that sort of thing. So we wrote big backstories on everything, and started building the relationship between the characters as we're writing the story. I'm kind of staying on the periphery because I can't tell you all the detail because I want you to buy the game and play it and enjoy the story. So we'll take a turn for, now we'll get into some of the art direction, because now that the, you know, pre-production is going on, and the, you know, the production design is going, you know, and we started with the art direction, and we knew right away that what we wanted to have is we wanted to be as real as possible. And so what that does is sets the technology for lighting and textures and stuff like that. And even hiring, we have to get, you know, certain people that are good at this stuff. So Call of Duty to us is about establishing a plausible setting, right? And it's based on reality, believability, relatability. Call of Duty's always been about that. So for us, we knew what the art direction has got to be kind of real, and we went for as real as possible. We have a very extensive website of concept art now, and this is what concept art will be. This is what a level now will look like. Before it was just kind of shooting in the dark and we're getting little pieces, but art direction means that we have very detailed paintings on everything. At the same time, we're also, you lay out the game, the whole game, and you're like colors and palettes, and mood and setting and weather and location. And what you want is you want a game that's, you know, highs and lows and changing, and like, so the player's always kind of looking forward to the next one because you know it's going to be different. So we set these moods boards, and we set these palettes for each and every level. Here's another example. This one was darker. So this is Aftermath, which I think we showed at E3, and a little bit darker level. And so we're setting that up, and then eventually we have a wall, maybe half the size of that one, and we lay out the whole game. And so we see the mood, and we see the type of levels, we see the type of gameplay that we put in there, so that it's not predictable. That's what we want to make sure, is that, you know, when you're putting all stuff together, it's not predictable, and that it's a nice flow for any player. So we spend a lot of time on that. On the EXO, We started with like, okay, let's build an exo. We had to build our own because the exos that we saw at the very beginning 3 years ago were very, very clunky. And so we needed to build something very slick. The crazy thing about this is that to build an exo like this and get it on the character and work correctly took a year. Just a couple of guys working on it, the technology to get it to work with every elbow, both. You know, knees and wrists and stuff like that, took about a year to get it right and to have it working correctly, which is, again, having 3 years, this allowed us to do that sort of thing, have the time to put that kind of detail in. And then, you know, we go on to this. This is the way it starts to look. And then eventually, there it is in game working. And it takes a long time to get something like that. And so, you know, a lot of designs. And then eventually we have designs for each and every faction. And then you can't imagine how many you can get, how they look for multiplayer. So the AST is the Armored Security Troop. And that is an advanced exoskeleton. So here's some sketches, and this just really is the tip of the iceberg on how many. Some of this, I think this one took probably about 75 to 100 of these drawings before I'm like, okay, let's take the legs off this one, the head here, and that sort of thing. And these are the kind of things we do a lot of. You'll see this for almost every single vehicle. We go, well, I'll show you even more of that. So we start out with drawings. Then we start to put pieces together and make sure that even in the interior of this guy, we make sure that the exoskeleton works because the character is actually in there. He's got to jump in there and make sure that the exoskeleton works. So we put all that kind of detail into it. Then we build it out. We show what the front and the back look like and some of the colors. And there we have our AST. Oops. There we go. Okay, so we do it with helmets. We do it with gloves. We do it with everything. So here's a couple of quick helmets. And then we do helmet studies. And again, we have probably 5, 6 more pages of this. And this is just for one particular helmet. I don't know how many helmets in the game, but you know, it's a lot of work. But it's the detail. We want to get it right. And eventually, you get one. You know, okay, that's getting a little bit better. And I failed to capture one in game, but you'll see a lot. Weapons. So we're going to use the IMR for an example here. I think we call it the HIMAR here in some of the drawings. So we start out with you know, some basic you know, side views of what it would look like. Then we get into, okay, here's more. We're kind of throwing them out. They say, okay, that looks good. And this is, again, we need to make it feel, you guys need to believe it. You need to believe it's a gun. You need to believe it's a weapon, but you also got to feel like, well, it's the future. So it really is a tough balance, but you know, after a while, we'll get to it. Then we get to the final, pretty close, but the last part is make sure, you know, this looks really cool here. Does it look good in that view, right? It looks completely different. That's what we found all the time, and a lot of it is because we also have the perspective of the main character, right? So we have to make sure that it looks good all the time. And so there's a lot of work that goes into building these things and putting them in 3D and make sure they look good from this one, and then multiply this by hundreds. You know, there's just tons and tons. And then we have to do it with attachments and everything. And I know it's out there that, you know, multiplayer has you know, almost 350 different types of weapons with the attachments and things like that. So there's a lot of work that goes just into that. Vehicles, a lot of vehicles. This is the hover tank. So you can see all the drawings that go into this. Then once we get one we like, we have to figure out the technology for it and the animation for it. So we do more detailed drawings of underneath, and then eventually we get to this. And yes, you play this in the game. And then we have a walking tank. Oh, a story on the walking tank. So I'm talking about this walking tank with my partner, Michael Condry. And I love the guy, right? Of course, I've been working together 10, 12 years. He doesn't think there's such thing of a walking tank's going to happen. Well, not in the course of this time with the game. We end up going down to, and we have a fight, and we have them over a lot of things with this, and that's what's good about our relationship. But we go down to NASA. And we're getting a tour of, now this tank, I said, it's a walking tank with wheels. I said, so the wheels part, so it goes on the road and when it needs to, and when it stops in a bad terrain, we put it in walking. He's like, come on, what are you thinking? We get down to NASA, right? And we're showing us all kinds of things. And the guy comes up and he says, you're in luck today, guys. We have a walking tank with wheels, right? And I'm like, yes. Right, and he's like, how could it be that specific, right? And we go to this place, and it wasn't. They lower it down. It's stainless steel, and I'm like, I'm photographing it. I'm sending it to the team, and like validation, and so you know, he did say, I hate it when you're right. But they weren't using it for weaponry. Didn't have the turret on it. What they're doing is they're using it as they have a drill, and it's going to go to asteroids and eventually drill on it. So it was pretty cool to see that sort of thing. Because I told him, I said, I'm seeing some of this stuff. So sorry, I digress. So we get into shapes and stuff like this. How do these things look? And then eventually, this was in Seoul, in induction, and it ended up coming down to 4 legs. Hello? I thought I was hearing something. Okay, so and then we have the hovercraft, hover bike, based on like snowmobiles and things like that, right? How they feel good, but you know, hover technology is really coming on, in at least in some of the military situation I'm seeing right now. So we started designing how this would look. And some of these you think, when you started, like, that's going to be like 2 drawings. And they end up like 50, 60. But we finally get the shapes and everything, and we start to build this thing out, and then we do it in color, and, you know, pretty happy with that one. I didn't grab a shot, I don't think. But so now we talk about location. So this was this is a mood piece. You know, sometimes we'll just do mood pieces, very kind of quick to kind of get what it's going to be like. Now we're at the point with art direction that we can just go right into really full-on, blown-on paintings, and that's what we'll do here. So these are different levels, and you know, using photographs from our location guys and things like that. We're starting to really build the world, and you know, now we have the signage, and this is inside one of the boats, but we have the signage, and we have smart glass, and what does the world look like, and the sound is starting to come on. We now know what the world looks like. So with these drawings, with these kind of paintings, we have, I was trying to estimate it the other day with our guy, and we were thinking we must have about 10,000. It's just thousands and thousands over 3 years. So last but not least is, now that we got everything going, got production design, game design, levels, all this art direction, it's just about finishing the game. And here's a couple screenshots. You know, after a couple of years, you guys have probably seen a lot of screenshots, so we're kind of accomplishing the realism that we wanted. And I wanted to leave you with one more thing, and that is, this is the way it all came together.
Peggy 18.
An operation on foreign sovereign soil, it would be an act of war.
We are going in.
On whose authority?
On my authority!
Eyes open, team. Enemy units approaching your AO. Here they come! Incoming. Enemy drones in the airspace near your position. Enemy targets are down. Load up if you need to. Heavy mech units showing on ISR. Enemies are using cloak capabilities. Enemy boosters inbound. Well done, team. Load up and run it again.
How much time? What is there? Okay, I'll see you. I wanted to give a few things away, but
If you'd rather do that for questions, we can do that.
I'm going to throw out some t-shirts at least. I'm going to throw out t-shirts.
Pre-order the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare Day Zero Edition and get early access, double XP, 2 custom weapons and the advanced arsenal.
Thanks very much. We've just got time for a couple of very quick questions, I think. So if we could bring the mics into the centre aisles, and if you have a question for Glenn, stand up and speak nice and close to the mic. Oh, and as a courtesy to Glenn, if you could keep the questions on the presentation you've just seen rather than general questions about the game, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hey, could we turn up the lights just a little bit? I had some gifts that I forgot to give away. That's if anybody interested in t-shirts? Yeah, okay. I thought maybe. Go ahead, ask your question. I won't throw one at you.
With the past Call of Duties for the PC, there hasn't been that great support during the start. I'm wondering what Sledgehammer are going to be doing for the PC this time, because there hasn't been many support before with Ghosts. The optimization was bad at the start, so what are you going to be doing to really support the PC?
You know, we'll be talking about more of that later. That wasn't part of the presentation today, and I don't mean to deflect it. I'm just not the business guy. I'm the creative guy, and I'm going to let them come out with their announcements really soon. But important stuff to us. I'd tell you everything right now.
Okay, cheers. Thank you.
Yeah.
We got another question?
Firstly, thank you for focusing so much on single player, because I'm kind of like the single player guy, so
okay.
Thank you for that.
Well, a lot of that stuff that I'm talking about then kind of goes over into multiplayer.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate that as well. But one of the things you kind of mentioned at the start was that it's about a new franchise you're trying to create. However, it is under the Call of Duty branding. So what was the best thing and maybe the worst thing about having that branding overview? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. Well, you know what? So over the course of my career, I've made licensed products, pure licensed products, and I made pure new IPs. And with this one, it was actually taking